This is Sporting Life.
Welcome to another Sporting Life racing podcast. It's a bonus Monday edition, slotting in between the madness of Christmas and the New Year action to come at Cheltenham, Tramore, Fairyhouse and beyond. It can be an odd week, this hinterland between Christmas and New Year. Hopefully we're able to fill the void a little bit over the next 50 minutes or so as we digest some of the racing that took place over the past 5 or 6 days. Today I'm joined by, well, it's the usual crew, all looking high on the joys of Christmas. Stilton, no doubt, coursing through your veins. It has to be said, Ed, I'm going to bring you in straight away. How's it been for you? How's it been for the ITV team?
Well, I think the most important thing, I think for jump race fans, it's been fabulous. We started off on this podcast at the start of the season, and I always say it, if we can get the product right, jump racing has a huge fan base, both on television and in terms of crowds. And you only have to look and read about the crowds there have been over the last few days. I mean, for Newbury to be 48% up is staggering, really. And I was at Kempton, obviously, for the 2 days, and Boxing Day was really good in terms of crowd. And the next day, Matt, is often a real after the Lord's Mayor show. I often really dislike the 27th, if I'm honest. I'm pining for Chepstow, amongst other things. But this year, no, it was a really good buzzing crowd on the 27th at Kempton. And it just shows you, if we can sort things out, the leadership out, so people can make decisions and make this happen more often, keep Willie Mullins, who's been one of the heroes of Christmas, taking horses on. If you produce the product, the quality, the matches in jump racing, people will come. And anyone who's been racing, apart from the ones in the fog, have had the most brilliant time. Newbury was rocking on Saturday. It was fantastic. And they'll all enjoyed it because the racing's been good. Those match-up in particular have been box office. And for the ITV team, it's been a real treat as well. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm going to be asking for a star of the week from each of you, man or beast, if you could have those ready. Ed, we're going to have to kick off with you as well, Ed, because you've been telling us for weeks, hurdles, fences, whatever you put in front of Sergino, he's unbeatable. And he really did deliver, didn't he? This was quite...
God, I thought you were going to start with Constitution Hill, but listen, he's exceeded my expectations, actually. I've always known he was good. I've always known he was a ridiculous talent. And that was pretty awesome. I had my heart in my mouth, Matt. Watching that first fence, I thought, oh, no, this is embarrassing. You know, having said how amazingly well he'd schooled at home. He is just really, really good, Sergino. That would be... I can't think of a better 4-year-old chaser that I've seen, certainly on debut. And that wasn't the real Ballyburn. I think it's fair to say. We'll get more from Billy about Willie Mullins' form over the Christmas period. Stateman and Ballyburn, both so disappointing. I don't think that was the real Ballyburn, and they'll go different ways from here, but still take nothing away from Sergino. I know the complete outsider wasn't that far away, and Rubo fell, but Sergino had his head in his chest. He was just absolutely cruising, and he was so quick on his feet, so clever correcting himself, ears pricked. He looked a fresh horse in the winner's enclosure afterwards. He's just a serious, serious talent.
David, we'll just put a bit of meat on the bones there. Sergino's, he's got himself a chase rating, 159 with a large P. This is after just the one go. Can you put put that into context for us a little bit?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, in terms of winning an Arkle, another festival grade ones, you're talking probably these novices. He's probably not that far away from the standard that you would normally expect to win an average race. I mean, he certainly looks as though he's well capable of hitting that 160 plus barrier, doesn't he? And I think, in terms of some of Henderson's other leading novice chasers in recent years, the likes of Sprinter Sacra, Altior, I think what Sergino did is slightly higher than what they did on chasing debut. Now, we probably need to put that into context. Sergino's done it in a grade 2 against a horse of the caliber of Ballyburn, whereas they were doing it in a run-of-the-mill novice or maiden chase. So it's that old argument of opportunity as much as ability. Yeah. But in terms of what he did, yeah, it's backed up by a really good time. What Sergino and Ballyburn did, how they just left Rubo way behind, didn't they? When the taps really got turned on, the time was slightly quicker than that was recorded in the Desert Orchid Chase. So in terms of what Sergino did, you couldn't ask for any more. And I certainly wouldn't be giving up on Ballyburn either just yet. In terms of what he did, I mean, he actually, in bare form terms, he stepped up on what he did on his chasing debut. And in the context of when he can just sort of find everything coming a little bit easier for him over 2.5 and 3 miles, I think it'll show that he's just been unfortunate to run into a superb prospect to whom he was giving £6. So a lot to look forward to for both of them, I think.
Is there another star you wanted to flag up, DJ, from the past few days?
Well, in terms of what the horses have done, I mean, most of those are speaking for themselves. So I was looking at the people behind the horses, really, and just wanted to call out what Joseph O'Brien's been doing in the Grade Ones. You know, obviously very much now renowned for what he does on the flat, but I think he had Banbridge in the King George, Solness in the Grade 1 2 mile. He won the Savills Hurdle with Home by the Lee. And then I think his only other runner in a Grade 1 over the festive period was Jordan's, who finished second to Impere Pass in the Foheen. So he's certainly not wasting his owner's entries fees in those Grade 1s. And obviously they all achieved plenty.
He's certainly doing very well in both codes. GC, I trust you fared well over Christmas. Did you do well at the dinner table over Christmas?
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy Twixmas, everyone. And yeah, I've enjoyed it. And I echo what Ed said. And it's been a real tonic to see sort of racing moving out of the parish, because the parish has become somewhat hidebound by negativity, with stories about affordability checks and turnover and Harrington and Truesdale, blah, blah, blah. And if you just let the horses shine, the people will come and enjoy it, sometimes in the fog. But my star of Christmas, and I'm not going to go with Crystal Black and steal anybody's thunder this time around. I'm going to go with Nicky Henderson. You know, you have to hand it to him. Now, I still maintain no Cheltenham statue, but a Kempton one is perfectly viable now after Boxing Day, because, you know, he got those two horses to really shine under pressure. And Sergino, what can you say? Sometimes you'll know what I mean, that superstar athletes, they sort of come out fully formed. Wayne Rooney, Mike Tyson, Boris Becker, etc. This fella's 4 years of age. He's 4-5 on New Year's Day. He's had half a dozen runs, and he's already looking like a horse who could win practically any race you put him in. So that was sensational. Constitution Hill we'll come to, but good to see him back. And now Henderson, my star of Christmas, has two flawless diamonds at the moment. 9 from 9, Constitution Hill, unbeaten Sergino. And we've seen from Willie Mullins at Christmas, from Henderson last spring, things can go wrong. Things can go quite badly wrong. They're delicate creatures. Stables are delicate environments at times. But at the moment, the sky looks the limit for Sergino. And Constitution Hill is now back in pole position for the Champion Hurdle.
I think that's what really struck me about Henderson as well, is that you could just tell, obviously, how much the Cheltenham Festival last season hurt him. And he did finish last season on a high, didn't he? Obviously at Aintree and then Sandown as well. And they've picked up where they left off in tremendous fashion. Billy, I'll come to you. Ireland, you know, sent over a couple of absolute turkeys to Kempton on Boxing Day. I'm sure we'll get to those, but can you nominate, you know, an Irish horse that did perform up to scratch?
I think there was
Banbridge
one.
did all right. Banbridge did all right.
I think there was one standout for me, Matt, and that had to be Galopin des Champs in the Savills Chase. He was electric again. You know, plenty of people doubted him after the John Durkin. They thought the younger legs of Factifile might be too good for him on this occasion, but he was back to something like his very, very best. He's another rating in the 170s. I think that's about the 8th time he's done that on time form ratings over fences. Look, he was sensational on the day. He jumped well, he travelled well, but what you'd love about him was how he really, you know, when he was challenged coming to the last, he really put his head down, ran through the line, and was, you know, halfway down the back straight again before Paul could pull him up. So I think he was, for me, that was the best performance of Christmas. He is, you know, in the superstar realm now. He's won 2 Gold Cups, he's won 2 Irish Gold Cups, he's won 2 Savills Chases, and you know, he has really been, judging by the reception he got at Leopardstown last week, he's really, the public have really started to take him to their hearts as well, you know. So yeah, he was the one for me. I was blown away by him in the race last year, but he was pretty close to that again this time around. I thought it was a fantastic performance.
Yeah, he's got to be getting towards that sort of great category now, hasn't he? Even if the well, even if the time form ratings don't quite see him in that light just yet, he may.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask Billy a question on Galopan? I echo, I adore that horse. I thought the lack of pressure applied to him was bizarre. The best horse in the race, given a pretty soft time of it, able to accelerate on rising ground round the bend and go into the 13 and change ×2. I just thought it was a bit unusual to see him given such a fairly soft time of it on the front end at a steady tempo. And I think Factor File can get closer to him another day. Final time, I think. Let's have a look. Compared to Percival Lagalwa and the big handicap, 20 lengths or more slower than that horse. So I don't think the other jockeys covered themselves in glory in terms of putting some pressure on the best horse in the race.
GC, I think two things on that. I think you're absolutely right during the race. I can't believe everyone knows where Townend's going to go at Leopardstown. He's going to come across to that rail in the straight. It's his strip. Why did they not try and stop that? Why don't they not at least try something to get on his outside and upset him?
Factor File still only 4-1. Factor File still only 4-1 for the Gold Cup, and in big prices bar 2. So at the moment, Willie has the king and the ace in that division.
Do you think Cheltenham, going back to Cheltenham, would suit him better, Billy? Factor File. Obviously, we know what Galopan can do round there, but is he as strong a stayer as him, or is it going to be a case of maybe even going for an easier test?
It's the issue. I don't know about an easier test. I think they will go down the Gold Cup route with him. I think if possible, they have, or certainly JP has other horses that he could reroute to the Ryanair Chase if he wanted to. I think he will go to the Gold Cup, but to be honest, I find it hard to see him turning around that form. I know he beat him in the John Durham. That was a totally different test at a totally different trip. I think we all know how good Galopan is at Leopardstown, but I think Cheltenham 3 miles and 2, he's one of the few chasers that really truly does get that trip at that, one of the few top chasers. Grade 1 horses that he really relishes that 3 miles and 2 at Cheltenham. I'm not too sure too many others do. And yeah, look, I think you put it in the notes, Matt. I think the Gold Cup is his race to lose now after that performance. I take what the lads are saying, but look, last year, Conflated led him until the second last. They put plenty of pressure on him last year, and he blew them away there. So I think whatever way they try and beat him at Leopardstown, they've tried a few ways and they haven't managed it. And unless things go skew ways at Cheltenham, I think he'll win the Gold Cup again after that performance.
Billy, can I broaden it out and ask you about Willie's festive period in general?
Yes, please.
It's 4 from 70 odd overall. Strike rate that's appreciably down on previous years. Now, I've not been reading lots of newspapers or media in general. I've just been watching the racing. My theory is, and it's a very general one, it can't apply across the board. Willie was worried about drying ground at Leopardstown all the way in the lead up to Christmas. And I think the conditions that prevailed, although safe, were not conducive to peak performances from some of his horses. What are you thinking on this angle?
Might have something to do with it, but I also think you have to think, having looked at the performances and the results over the week, that there is just something possibly low level going on with those Mullins horses. I was just looking it up this morning. Pre-Christmas, he had a strike rate from the 1st of December until Christmas Eve. Willie's strike rate was at 28%, and his run to form on time form rating. So, a horse with a time form master rating, a couple of pounds above or below his. A couple of pounds above or below that we'd consider having run to form. So 55% of his runners were running to form pre-Christmas. For the couple of days after Christmas, his strike rate has plummeted from 28% to 9%, and his run to form has gone from 55% to 41%. So that tells me that, okay, the drying ground was possibly an issue, but there is something else just going on under the surface at Closutton. He's had a couple of horses taken out during a couple of non-runners. I say he pulled one out yesterday because it was coughing. He pulled another one out with an infection. He pulled another one out that there was some other little thing going wrong with it. So, enough of them have run well to say it's not a full-blown crisis, but there have been plenty of below-par performances to say there is just something bubbling under the surface at Closutton, and there are a lot of those horses that underperformed at Christmas that I think can be given a pass because of that.
I'm pretty sure Paul Townend was on record saying he felt Lossiemouth ran flat as well. He said that, didn't he? Obviously, and you could sort of add to that with State Man. That was that was the worrying one, wasn't it? He was beaten hollow from very early on, seemingly had absolutely nothing left in the tank, no fight in him at all.
Yeah, I thought he was beaten after jumping a hurdle, Matt, to be honest. I mean, we know what he's like, State Man. Paul is always sitting against him. He's a really enthusiastic traveller. He had a big loop in his reins passing the stands the first time, which is just not like him. It's not that he couldn't go that gallop. He certainly can lie up with those horses, but he was beaten way too far out, and he couldn't even beat Winter Fog in the finish. So, fantastic performance as it was by Brighter Days Ahead. It turns out she was really impressive in a one-horse race, so make up your own minds about that performance. But I don't think it was a true reflection either of her ability or of those in behind her, to be honest.
Yeah, and like already mentioned, I'm not sure I'd be marking Ballyburn down quite so much on the back of that. Maybe hindsight will show that he has bumped into a very special 2 mile chaser there when he is actually a Gold Cup horse in future. Before we move on from kind of that Gold Cup picture then, Ed, just realistically, looking back at those King George principles, I've clearly overlooked Banbridge won the King George for Ireland there. Thank you, JC. Il Francais, he's put up a fantastic performance, but a bit like Banbridge as well. They're just not really Gold Cup horses, are they?
No, Il Francais won't. I don't think be a Gold Cup horse. They'll drop him back in trip. I'm not sure Cheltenham would necessarily be his track either, but I think there's good races to be won with him over shorter trips. I should think Aintree, Melling Chase, whatever that's called now. I thought Il Francais could be absolute dynamite in a flat track round there. And Banbridge deserves enormous credit. It was just so telling to show the two jockeys at that final fence. James Reevely was holding on to absolutely nothing, and Townend was sensational on Banbridge. Got the revs up, took all the momentum from the last, which at Kempton is decisive. L'Empresse's run well in third. The Real Whacker's run a good race. I wouldn't give up on Spillan's Tower. That test just didn't suit him on the day at Kempton. I think softer ground over further, because let's be honest, the Kempton form in both the Corto Star and the King George rarely, really, with the odd exception, relates to Cheltenham form. And I think Spillan's Tower and Corbett's Cross and others will be different propositions around Cheltenham. So I would take the two bits of form in separation, to be honest. But full marks to Banbridge. Who knows? He might become a Gold Cup horse, but Kempton's a totally different ball game. And as you say, how many horses would Joseph O'Brien have? When you talk about those stats, Billy, from 18, 19 horses, something like that?
He claims he has about 20 jump horses. Now, I suggest he has a bit more than that, Ed. But even still, he's operating at a very, very impressive strike rate at the moment.
And it's still a big ground thing with Banbridge, isn't it? Whenever he gets goodish ground, what we would consider spring ground, he is a genuine high-quality Grade 1 horse. But he is going to be a hostage to storms and rainstorms in the spring, I think.
David, could you look back at that King George and look at some of the beaten horses and think maybe on a different day, on different ground, you'd be willing to give another chance to the likes of Grey Dawning or even Corbett's Cross?
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a case of them giving their running, but if they're going to be campaigned in Grade 1 races later in the season, then I think they are going to be struggling because, in terms of the form that they've achieved, they're probably only sort of mid 160s, low 160s at the very best. And whereas, we're talking about Galopin des Champs, Billy was there telling you, he's put 7 or 8 performances up that show that he's a proper, genuine 170 plus horse. So, I mean, yeah, they'll come back another time and they'll run their race, but I don't think they're the kind of horses that you want to be kid glove treatment on the way and saving them for the festival, because they're going to be coming up against rivals that are simply superior to them. So, yeah, I think, Grey Dawning, I think in hindsight, maybe, obviously he did make that big mistake, didn't he, early on, which might have knocked the stuffing out of him. But I think in hindsight, I don't think Dan Skelton will be happy that he ran him, really. It's pretty easy to back, wasn't he? He went off 13-2, having been sort of 4-5-1 earlier in the day, I think. So maybe it just wasn't his running. Corbett's Cross, I just don't think is a genuine Grade 1 horse against these kind of opposition. So I think they're going to be struggling if they're going to save them for the Grade 1 races.
Yeah, sounds fair to me. I wonder if Corbett's Cross might be in the Grand National at some stage. Let's wrap up Champion Hurdle. I mean, obviously we've mentioned Brighter Days Ahead. We all know where she probably should run, but Ed, is she going to run in the Champion Hurdle?
Brighter Days Ahead, did you say? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, crikey. I mean, honestly, if she doesn't, it's just it's going to force the Jockey Club's hand, isn't it? I mean, you can't have that. that shenanigan going on. And with Michael O'Leary, he's just going to stir it up between now and then, isn't he? Because he just enjoys that type of thing. But that would just be a joke, in my opinion. I love that line from Billy, though. She was impressive in a one-horse race. That's the line of the morning so far. But
the thing is, though, it's all right saying she's impressive in a one-horse race, but that's like damning Roger Bannister saying, "Oh, he only beat 3 rivals when he broke 4-minute mile." When you look at the time that she's recorded,
I mean, what was placed in Frankel's Guineas? Native Khan and something. Dubai
yeah, exactly, yeah. So the time figure that she's produced is going to be in the mid to high 160s by the looks of it. You go through all of the races, all the times of this race. I know it was quickish ground. I think Timeform are calling it good on the hurdles course at Leopardstown, but it's the quickest time that that race has been run at this century. Yes, you can say that Stateman didn't give his running because obviously he didn't, but she's still beaten Winterfog by 30 lengths and nothing has laid a glove on her. And I just don't think if you want to underestimate her, I think it's very dangerous to do that. I really do.
But it would be depressing if she doesn't run in the big one, wouldn't it? I mean, there's the Irish Champion hurdle where she can have another dig with Stateman and see where we go from there. But if she's as good as she looked, not just yesterday, but earlier on this season, she should have won at the festival. That was, a real one that got away for Jack Kennedy. It will, they tinkered with practically everything at the Cheltenham Festival, apart from the mares race. And that looks like it might be the one to come back to bite. And if we ended up with Lossiemouth versus Brighter Days Ahead in the mares race, that would be a double trouble, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe the key to the whole thing is Constitution Hill, is it? Sticking with you, GC, just how back is this great horse?
Well, David will tell us that that horse set the bar impossibly high very early in the Supreme Novices with a time that was earth-shattering. Every aspect of that performance was world class, and it's always going to be difficult to get even close to that level. But the one thing I would point out, I'm a big Lossiemouth fan. I hope she is better than she showed the other day, but she was only beaten 2.5 lengths by one of the best hurdlers we've ever seen. But just go back to the race, lads, and this is what 2-mile hurdling is all about. And just watch each hurdle and watch how one horse pounces like a cat up and over in that much time. Whereas Lossiemouth is a little bit deliberate, a little bit skew width at times. And just that alone makes me think it will always be Constitution Hill's race to lose when they meet, because he's got this wonderfully accurate and speedy hurdling technique, which generally the very best ones do possess.
She can bridge the gap a bit, can't she, Billy, on soft ground, genuinely testing conditions?
I don't know if she needs genuinely testing conditions. I think she can bridge the gap. And to be honest, I was disappointed with how she jumped at Kempton. She's normally slicker than that. So I just think that maybe she wasn't quite at her best. But I like the way Willie was talking afterwards. He's very much going for the champion hurdle. There was no talk of rerouting her to the mayor's hurdle.
Good.
He's quite adamant that they can tinker with a few aspects of her training and have her sharper going to Cheltenham. It might not be good enough to beat Constitution Hill, but he will have another crack at her. She'll probably turn up in the Irish Champion or the International again at Cheltenham, and we'll have a better idea after that. But I do think she was better than what she showed at Kempton. Whether she's going to be good enough to beat Constitution Hill, that's another matter. He wasn't at his best, but he is entitled to come on for that. It was his first run for a year after all,
And Ed, it is just so good to have him back, isn't it? Like, he did leave a big hole when this horse that everyone seemed to want to talk about, one of the best we've seen for ages, was missing from the game.
He's a freak. He's a complete freak. There's no chance of a firing Constitution Hill being beaten by her ever, in my opinion. Even when he's not near 100%, I said on the pod last week, he could give her 17 pounds, let alone 7, and beat her. He's a freak.
Clip that bit up, Matt, for future reference.
He's a freak. He's a complete freak. The problem is going to be keeping him right. And the issues he's had and has had in the past. A fit and firing Constitution Hill is just a complete freak. He's brilliant. He blew up before the last on Boxing Day. You could see it. He needed that. And he was tubby in the paddock. He's brilliant, Matt.
Wind issues are tricky, aren't they? They can flare up again.
Possibly. That would be my worry. None of them could beat him. None of them can beat him if he's on his game.
14-1, Brighter Days Ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, we live in hope, don't we?
Yeah.
it's gone to plan as I hoped so far, in that I did think that she didn't get the credit she deserved in the Morgiana, and I thought she got a fair chance of holding the placings again at Christmas, which she obviously did. And I think she needs to go and beat him again in the Irish champion at the DRF to really make their minds up for them. But I think it could just be such an interesting race, the Champion Hurdle, because we've seen now the way that they need to ride Brighter Days Ahead to get the very best out of her. They want to be aggressive on her and sit her quite close to the pace, but that's also the way that you're going to get the best out of Constitution Hill as well, isn't it? So you could sort of see them sitting second and third and having a real good ding-dong. And the interesting thing is Lossiemouth going to be able to sit in there behind and show that she's better than she was at Kempton. I have my doubts about her. I mean, how many of us were thinking that Kempton wasn't a track before Boxing Day? The idea was that she might potentially have too much speed for them around there. And then all of a sudden, she's looked as though she can't go the gallop. And now we're saying that it's because she doesn't have the speed for it. So I just think maybe you look back at her form and look at the horses that she's beaten, and she's always really been style over substance. And it just might be that she isn't quite as good as what we all hoped and thought she was. So, yeah, I just really do hope that they do go for the Champion Hurdle. Will they? I don't know. Maybe we should put it on the poll and see.
I just think, Matt, in a normal year, a really good mare with £7 should be absolutely deadly. But there's nothing normal about Constitution Hill. One
of the abiding images of Christmas thing, I'm sure you've all seen it, the still image taken from below of Willie Mullins. I think he was in the paddock at Leopardstown watching the Christmas Hurdle from afar, and he had the old trench coat on, the trilby, and there were a couple of other guys in sort of Peaky Blinders attire behind him, faces like stone. And when it suddenly became clear that you weren't taking on something normal.
And my only disappointment with Kempton absolutely rocking, the noise was fantastic. It was deafening at Kempton on Boxing Day, and a million people are watching at home. Why did Nico have to say what he said about Paddy Brennan on the walk in? I thought that was very odd.
Yeah, 100%. I really, it annoys me when a major sporting event is hijacked by media Herberts like that. And I think he might have got the wrong end of the stick here with this David Power Cup de Boinville. I think he now feels he has to be a bit more punchy in media terms, and he thought that would work. But I thought it took a little bit of guilt off the occasion.
But there was what, 956,000 people watching on ITV. I reckon 900,500 and plenty of them would have not had the first idea what he was talking about. He's better than that.
Yeah, they didn't have a clue who he was shutting up at all, I don't think, did they? But
it was very odd.
Fair play to Paddy. Novice chasers, we have touched on Ballyburn. Obviously, we just need to wrap up a few more from this particular division. We've got, Madgeborough presumably is now going to be the one that takes on Sergino, heading towards an Arkle perhaps. Impero Pass, he was good. This was grade one. Fantastic day for Daryl Jacob. Obviously, we'll come to him in a second. But this horse, Billy Impero Pass, it looks like he might be sticking it 2.5 miles, which might mean DRF, Fairy House over Easter and onto Aintree perhaps. But he's a capable horse on his day, isn't he? It wasn't not the strongest grade one though.
But he is a very good horse. One I'd love to see going 3 miles, Matt, but it seems as if Willie Mullins is convinced that he's a 2.5 miler. So another reason why the disgraceful decision to cut that 2.5 mile grade one from the Cheltenham Festival at Chamberlain. What a cracker we'd have this year with Impero Pass taking on Ballyburn. But the other, I suppose, unintended consequence of the Christmas period is that Sergino was so impressive at Kempton. How many are going to take him on an Arkle? I would say very few. I think if he turns up at Cheltenham, we're going to have a small field Arkle.
Very good point.
It will depend on, assuming Madgeborough wins the Irish Arkle. I would say at this moment in time, he's probably the leading contender over here, now that Ballyburn has been beaten. But I can't see too many more taking on Sergino there. Obviously, the 2.5 mile race is gone, so not all of those will run in the 3 mile race. So, where does that leave us? I thought it was a hasty decision to get rid of that 2.5 mile grade one. I'd love to see them reinstated. Obviously, they won't.
There's an open handicap, Billy. There's an open handicap. It'll be packed, that race.
How many are going to run in that, Matt? You know, so in Perry Pass, Willie seems to think that maybe Fairy House. You know, there's the 2.5 mile Grade 1 there. There's obviously a race at Aintree. There are plenty of good races for him to win. Like I said, personally, I'd love to see him going 3 miles. Maybe he's a King George horse for next year. You know, that sort of test might really suit him. But yeah, not the strongest Grade 1, but he's a horse that's genuinely up to Grade 1 level over fences. We saw it over hurdles, and he seems to have taken well to chasing. And
Similar
yes,
story in the Corto Star. GC, we saw the jukebox man, Ben Pauling.
Yeah.
Good scenes with him enjoying a top class victory.
Yeah, he looked to have the makings before he jumped a fence on his hurdles form. And have a look at him in terms of his jumping technique. If you watch him all the way around, he can do it both ways. He can go bold, but he's quite nimble and agile, given that this was only his second chase. And I don't think he beat a stellar field, but he beat them emphatically. And it's good that, you know, Britain, hurdles and fences are building up some really, really likable novices. There doesn't seem too much of a doubt about Cheltenham for him, given the way he handled that track over hurdles, albeit in defeat, agonizing defeat last spring. So loads to like about him. And Touchwood, a bit like on Perry Pass, he's a good quality hurdler who seems likely to be at least as good over fences, because so far at least his jumping technique has looked really, really accurate.
Okay, Daryl Jacob, obviously the rider of Impere Pass. He seemed to catch a few people by surprise with his announcement, didn't he, at the weekend? I don't think some of us who kind of speak to him fairly regularly throughout the year with all that shock to come back from, well, 2 fairly serious collarbone injuries, surgery on his shoulder, all the rehab and riding out that has kind of gone back in, all the hard work to get him race ready again. Not totally surprised that he wanted to bow out on the back of a Grade 1 win. Just hearing him on Racing TV as well on Sunday morning, he did a fantastic interview on Mark the Card with Gary O'Brien. You could tell how much it meant to him getting back to Leopardstown as well on Sunday, Billy. Fantastic to see him go out in good shape.
Brilliant to see it. You know, delighted for Daryl. I've known Daryl a long time. It was 20 odd years now since when I first met Daryl on the Curragh, when he was a struggling 7-pound claimer. He was struggling to get rides, not alone winners, you know. So I think Daryl is a great example for young fellas starting out. You know, he had nothing really handed to him. He had to work really hard for it. Obviously, things weren't happening for him in Ireland. He went to England. The link up with the Allners was probably key to Daryl's career, and the Listener was the horse that really catapulted him into the big time. I'm pretty sure he was still a claiming rider when he won the Lexus on the Lincoln way back in the day, and also he's had a fantastic career. 30-something Grade 1 wins is huge, over 1,000 winners, which I suppose nowadays it's not, you know, as special as it was. You know, when the likes of Mackay were doing it, not many were riding 1,000 winners. It's become more common, but it's still a huge number to get to. So he's had a tremendous career. It was brilliant to see him bow out on a Grade 1 winner, essentially. And best of luck to him and whatever he does after this. But yeah, I've never seen so many people so happy that a jockey retired, Matt. I don't know what that's going to tell you.
I was going to say, come on, Ed, you must have a good broadcastable Daryl story or two for us.
He's such a lovely lad. He's proof that nice, lovely people can succeed. And I've retired him a couple of times already, because the original plan, I get asked about this a lot, why I said what I said at the festival, is because Daryl told me to, because he was on James de Burleigh and he said, this will be my last ride at the Cheltenham Festival, because the plan was to stop at the Punchestown Festival. So I got very emotive and talked about him. And of course, the plan then changed when he got the injury. And I didn't want him to come back, I'll be honest with you. When you're close with someone like that, and he's been through all that, I didn't want him to come back. I thought that was enough. And I've not enjoyed really him fighting and being determined to come back again. But I enjoyed the weekend. I'm very relieved it's over. Very, very relieved it's over. And you see his wife and 2 kids there, and you just think for them, thank goodness for that. And listen, he's a super fella. He's great fun. He's like an annoying younger brother at times. I remember we took him to the Sky Bet office one time. He'd not seen a computer before, and he was the most excited little lad you've ever seen, like he was in Disney World. And I'm just so relieved, Matt. He can be really proud of everything he's achieved, and he'll be all right now, because Simon Muneer and Isaac Swade are 2 classy individuals who he's going to stay working with. So we don't have to worry about his next step. He's going to do okay, and congratulations to him on everything he's achieved.
First of all, how is Daryl Jacob over 40 years of age? You look at him and you think, he's about 30, 31, 32.
With that
But
grey hair?
He's been a rider for just over 20 years. And you know, you're going back to names that we'll all remember, like the listener, as Billy mentioned, Rev de Civala, Zarkandar, etc. But most of all, I think Bristol Demai. When he got on that horse, I don't think he got off it. He rode him every single race for over 5 years and 3 Betfair Chase wins, etc. So, and probably the best thing you can say about any celeb or leading sportsman, if they're exactly the same off camera as they are on camera, that tells you plenty about them, and that's exactly what you can say about Daryl Jacob.
Billy, we saw Rachel Blackmore back in the winners' enclosure as well on Sunday, winning on the mare, July Flower. Must have been quite a relief for her to get back, because she obviously came back with fully intention of winning first time up on Slade Steel, and that went a bit pear-shaped, and then she's had to wait a few weeks.
It's funny the way it goes, Matt, isn't it? I mean, Rachel's been out for 3 months or so. She came back on a short price favourite that got beaten, and it has been a bit of a struggle for her. Not any of her fault, but it was great to see her getting a winner. I mean, contrast that to JJ Slevin, who was out for probably a similar period of time and won on his first ride back, you know. So it's funny the way things go. He had a tremendous week. Rachel, it's been a bit of a struggle. Obviously, she would have liked, or would have hoped, that Envoy Allen would run better than he did in the King George. And I suppose it's been very frustrating for her watching Henry's horses running as well as they have been while she was out, and also the ones that she didn't ride over Christmas going and winning, you know. So probably a tough enough week for her, but delighted that for her that she got back on a winner, and probably on quite a nice mare as well, July Flower. You know, she's one that we're going to hear plenty about. I don't know if she'll go the mare's hurdle route, but
That's the plan, I think.
Yeah, I look, she was third in that. I'm not sure exactly what you call it. The good French, is it the French champion hurdle she was third in? The race that Hewitt was second in. You know, so that's over an extended 3 miles, 3 miles and 1 or something. So she wouldn't be out of place in the stairs hurdle, a wide open stairs hurdle if they wanted to go there with her. She stays really well. So, but yes, Rachel was the big story. Great to see her back on a winner, and I'm sure she'll kick on now and have plenty more.
Can I stick with you, Billy? Because I want to stick with Henry as well. We're going to switch slightly to novice hurdlers, but I was quite impressed with, well, he's got a nice mare that won the Grade 2 Land Rover Novice. That's the big Westerner, isn't it? And I was quite impressed with Work Ahead, the workforce. They won the 2 mile maiden hurdle at Leopardstown on the same day, I think. Yeah,
he looks to have a really nice bunch of horses coming along, and those two in particular. The big Westerner is now 2 from 2, and she is, you know, she's well named. She looks like a big unit. She's a half sister to Stay Away Faye, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if she ends up down the Albert Bartlett route herself. That was nearly 3 miles at Limerick, and she looked like she wanted nearly every yard of it. So I think if she does end up at the festival, I think she'll be going 3 miles. But she's certainly one that's going to make a better chaser down the line. And I suppose similar comments probably apply to Work Ahead, who had won a point, but Work Ahead was, you know, we're talking about Willie Mullins' novice horse, or we will talk about Willie Mullins' novice hurdlers and how disappointing they were over the Christmas period. I think the one of his that emerged with his reputation enhanced is one that we didn't see over Christmas, and that's Jasmine DeVoe, who had beaten Work Ahead pretty comprehensively at Navan the time before, and the Enabler, who won at Leopardstown yesterday, second and third in that race. Jasmine DeVoe had beaten them fairly comprehensively. A good performance by Work Ahead. Again, he's a typical Henry de Bromhead horse. Whatever he does over hurdles is a bonus. He's going to make a smashing chaser in 12 months' time, but he should win plenty of races between now and then as well.
And on Willie novice hurdlers, we saw Kopek de Board won the maiden. Patrick Mullins has just said that he felt something maybe had gone sort of slightly amiss with the horse, considering the way that he jumped. So to win despite that marks him down as quite an exciting prospect as well.
Well, he's a horse with a huge reputation, and I think we saw just why the other day, because he jumped appallingly, Matt, to be quite honest. He dived out to his left, he clattered through hurdles, he pulled Patrick's arms out, and he still went and won well. I don't know how deep a race it was. That particular 4-year-old maiden hurdle, I think it's the last 4-year-old maiden hurdle of the year, so it's a funny kind of time for 4-year-olds. A lot of the more precocious ones have, you know, they've their races won at that stage. So you're up against maybe a few disappointing sorts or unexposed ones. It has an up and down sort of a history. Classical Dream won it, but there's been a lot of fairly average winners of it as well. I think Kopek de Board is going to turn out to be one of the better ones. Like I said, there's been a lot of talk about him for a long time. if he can tidy up his jumping, there's clearly a massive engine in there, and he's certainly one to be excited about, I think.
Yeah, I think he's about 12 to 1 for the Sky Bet Supreme. Obviously, we've got Salvatore Mundi topping that market. We've yet to see him since that bloodless victory in the springtime. And Romeo Coolio, GC, I don't know if you got the 1-2 for Elliot here. Romeo Coolio won the Grade 1.
Yeah, and he looked a strength athlete, didn't he? They put him out on the sharp end from early on. It was foggy. We'll touch on that maybe in a minute on a broader scope. But he won really emphatically, banishing memories of a short price defeat the time before. We know he's good. We know he's capable of handling Cheltenham because of his bumper run. I'm not sure how deep that race that he won the other day was. And just look at the betting for the Supreme Novices. There are a hell of a lot of cards to be played in that division. Is it 8, 10, 12 to 1 the field at the moment, Matt? I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. In behind that Romeo Coolio, we saw Carnique and Carafon, 2 Ks to keep an eye on with the handicaps in mind, having now had their 4 qualifying runs, 2 of which were in France.
5 now, Matt. Do you need to have run 5 times for Cheltenham now?
The 5 starts?
Is it slightly different for hurdles and fences?
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, there's plenty of time yet, Billy, for the DRF run as well.
You could have a nice run round if they can find some more thick fog. That's perfect.
Well, yeah, exactly. We were battling that, weren't we, in Britain as well. Potter's Charm, DJ. He's won the Grade 1 at Aintree. I mean, I could barely see it. What did you make of it? How did Timeform deal with the fog?
Yeah, we'll just make the best of it. Obviously, we haven't got any secret pictures that aren't available to everybody else. So you just sort of make out what you can and sort of read between the lines. But obviously, the most important thing tends to be the margins between them at the line. And we could still sort of deal with that. And Potter's Charm, I think he's come out of the Formby with a rating of 140p. The Challow winner, the New Lion, I think he's going to end up something in the low 140s with a large P. And then we've got Romeo Coolio, who gets a rating of 150 with a small P. So we're taking the view at the moment that it is the Irish form from that Grade 1, which is worth a little bit more than the 2 British races. But I mean, particularly the New Lion was very impressive visually, wasn't he? Even if there might be a few doubts about the bear form of that race with the outsider getting closest to him. But no, it does look as though the British, they haven't had much to shout about in the novice hurdle division in the last 2 or 3 years, have they? But it looks like they might be able to put up a little bit more of a stronger challenge this year than what they have done recently.
That's it, Ed. We've been here before with Challows, haven't we? We've kind of hailed the new star, and it hasn't always worked out. He could be the one, couldn't he?
He could. He's very good. But as you say, the form of that race, and Regent Stroll didn't turn up, did he? He got very edgy in the prelims and then was very sweaty down at the start and then pulled in the race. That's not the real Regent Stroll. So it's still mightily impressive. He didn't come off the bridle, and the way he was able to switch him jumping the last was mightily impressive. I just think that Formby, I just don't agree with that being run on Boxing Day. If one race over Christmas got lost, that's it. One, it feels got lost. I can see why they've done it, and you would know, GC, it's a big Boxing Day crowd at Aintree, which I suppose is the upside. I haven't seen the number of how many people were there, but from our point of view, the race gets in the way and gets lost, and it shouldn't, because it's a good Grade 1. It also means next Saturday at Sandown, you look at how that's shaping up. That's mediocre at best. And Potter's Charm, I think, deserves an enormous amount of credit. Obviously, we didn't see a whole heap of it, but he was back, Matt, as if defeat was completely out of the question. Twos, he was odds on at one point. I think he went off at even money. And Nigel's got a real good one there. I'd struggle to separate the two of them because I think he's going to be even better over further.
Yeah.
GC, any views on the viewing spectacle? Well,
he finds a lot, I think, Potter's Charm, which is a big plus. The New Lion was visually very impressive. I think Darren and Annalie Yates, they're going to have to be very brave to fend off the offers that are going to come for that horse, I think. I know he's a wealthy bloke. He got his first big hit with Frankie's Magnificent Seven, didn't he? I think he won about 550 grand. But, there are people with budgets that are hard to resist. As regards to fog, I've sort of had to think about this, and I think it's dead right to go ahead overall, especially at Christmas time, when you've got tons and tons of generally once a year race goers who are ready to launch in more ways than one at the bars and punting and just generally have a good time. So provided it's safe for the riders and they can decide that, I think it's perfectly reasonable to carry on. Yes, it's not the spectacle that it might have been, but this year's Christmas program would have been much poorer had we cancelled Aintree and bits of Leopardstown, etc. I just wonder whether the in Britain especially, whether the whip review committee might be a little less busy than they normally would because of the foggy conditions.
I got more messages about the fog at Chepstow on the 27th than I did about Sergino and Constitution Hill combined from
Grumbling
some sport-loving friends of mine with a picture of a blank screen saying your sport is a joke.
So the commentators did brilliantly, didn't they?
Yeah, Martin Harris did a great job.
Yeah. And what's his name in Ireland? Jerry Hannon. He had to filibuster here and there, and overall, he did a really good job.
Just a wonderful bit from Jerry Hannon. He sort of built to a massive crescendo, and he goes, as they go to 2 out, and then he just went silent for about 15 seconds until they came back into shot.
Superb. Just on Regent Stroll, Ed, does that sort of sum up a little bit Paul Nicholls' Christmas?
Yeah, it's a bit like Willie. Some have been running okay. I thought In the Waterside did really well because he was plenty free enough in the race and won well. He can jump better as well. He's a horse to keep on the right side of. Yeah, Regent Stroll had run his race beforehand. Richard Hoyles had picked him out how edgy he was beforehand. He's definitely better than that. He's going to have to do a lot of learning. He's clearly a talented, but at the moment a big baby, and wasn't ready for that. He was not ready for that.
No, he's a bit of a beast, isn't he? In many ways.
Am I reading too much into the fact that Harry Cobden, when being interviewed by Matt Chappers-Chapman on, I'm not sure it was ITV or Sky Sports.
No, it was on Sky. It wasn't with us.
Yeah, when Harry said he's the only horse in the yard with star potential going forward, I think a few of the owners and the trainer might be listening to that, thinking, we can do without the stable jockey coming out with stuff like that. It's very honest of him, admirable in some ways, but it sort of flags up a testing time ahead for the Nicholls stable.
Johnny Deneen said that Paul Nicholls trains a lot of rubbish.
Ties in with those comments from Johnny Deneen, doesn't it? Yeah, that maybe Cobden was having a ironic nudge to that. I don't know, or whether maybe he does genuinely think that's the case.
Well done to Johnny. Salute to him. But we should also mention that he also said that he suspected that Constitution Hill might not even finish.
Just on the jockeys, Cobden there, I hadn't actually spotted how far clear in the old David Power Jockeys Cup Skelton was. He's 20 odd clear, isn't he?
Long way to go.
I
wonder what Paul Townend can do in that competition. You just wonder at those big meetings to come.
Do you think
they'll pick up a lot of points? No one's really run away with it.
No, very true, very true. Okay, let's look very briefly ahead, because obviously on the back of some real feasts of quality at Leopardstown and Kempton, then the Cheltenham New Year's Day card has come through, and it's looking a little bit thin, but good to see Sonic the Hedgehog 3's back sponsoring at the meeting. We have got Golden Ace in the Relkiel as well, and she's the one who beat Brighter Days Ahead, don't forget. Is she a player? Is she a player in the, what division are we looking at here? Is she a champion hurdler, GC?
No chance. Absolutely.
Okay.
Here we go. Clip this up as well. No chance. She's just a pretty good mare. She should be aimed at the mares race, and she's probably a place contender at best for that. She got the best of a very tactical battle with Brighter Days Ahead.
Yeah, and at the weights, wasn't she about fourth best in the race on the back of it as well? And
she was beaten at Ascot by Lucky Place. And I couldn't find too many excuses for her first time out. So she's entitled to come on for that. But does she meet Lucky Place again on New Year's Day?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I'm not really finding too many obvious reasons why she should find bundles of improvement. But I haven't looked at the New Year's Day cards in great depth. Good to see that we're likely to get New Year's Day on. And after that, the weather gets very moody, I think.
Yeah, it's 2.5 miles on softish ground, plenty enough of a test for her as well. She's a real strong traveller, isn't she? And it was obviously the speed that she showed that won her the race at the festival. So I'd be worried about her under these conditions.
And they think a lot of that Lucky Place. I mean, he was one of the few horses who ran well at the Fez when Henderson's were all wrong. And I think they thought he'd need his reappearance at Ascot. I think he's a good horse.
Oh, Lorcan Williams is back to ride Golden Ace. So I assume he served his ban for hitting that horse umpteen times at Newbury, yeah?
He's back. Gemiron's back as well, up £8. He's in the there's only 9 runners in this one, but this is the latest of the sort of 2.5 mile handicap chases. He's up against kind of the same faces in, well, Hitman, Midnight River's back. I think he's won this race in the past, hasn't he, on New Year's Day? But Tremor, let's switch across.
Can I just say one thing about Cheltenham, Matt, just
Please,
before
Ed.
we move on? This season is buzzing along really nicely, really, really nicely. The graded race is so much better than last year. My concern are these big handicaps. You look at that 3 mile, 1.5 handicap at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. 5 runners, headed by Broadway Boy. And then you look at other big handicaps where last year they were saving the season. Coral Gold Cups and Paddy Power Gold Cups were what was keeping the jump season ticking along nicely. This year, field sizes and so on are really alarming. And it's hard to explain why that is. I spoke to Ruby about it. He says it's because horses can't be educated like they were beforehand with the lack of beginners chases and so on. I just think it's the one on the field, if you like. It's the one worrying factor from the first half of this season has been these big handicap chases.
Cheltenham need to shake out the biscuits in Ed. It's 26 grand to the winner, that race you mentioned. That's not going to, that's not going to fill these days if you're putting up 26 grand for a good quality handicap chase at Cheltenham on New Year's Day.
They put a huge prize money boost into a similar race just before Christmas at the December meeting, didn't they? So I don't know if that's the issue. They've diverted them away from this race by putting the prize money up for the previous one.
Bill, in Ireland, it's all about the O'Driscoll's Irish Whiskey New Year's Day Chase. This is a grade 3. 8 runners in this, seemingly a fair chance for Monty Stowe. We've not seen yet this season, but it's a nice sort of stepping stone for him, isn't it? If he's going to really become a standing dish in the 3 mile division.
He's going to become a Gold Cup horse, Matt. He's going to have to win this. Simple as, he had a good novice season last year. He finishing second to Factifile at Cheltenham and then second to Spallan's Tower at Punchestown. So he's run to a pretty high level. He's a relatively lightly raced horse. And, he should really be beating these horses. Manila Indo, his stable companion, runs in the same colours, is 12 or rising 12 now. So he's probably past his peak. And you have a bunch of Willie's horses who are below the top level. Capadano, Embassy Gardens, Appreciated, Classic Getaway. All of those horses are good horses, but they're not genuine grade 1 horses anymore. Appreciated might have been at once upon a time. So if Monty Star is going to be a Gold Cup horse, which Henry de Bromhead tells us he is, then he should be winning this and he should be winning it well. 2 miles 5 around, or 2 miles 6 and a bit around Tremor is probably not ideal for him, but the ground will be soft and you can be sure Henry will have him ready for this. It's his local track and this has been the plan for a while. So I expect him to win it, but like I said, he'll need to win it well to be even considered a genuine Gold Cup horse at this stage.
Still lightly raced though, Billy, isn't he? What,
he is, yeah.
3 hurdles and 4 chases. He's a high class horse already from not many goes.
Absolutely, and look, they have been very positive about him, and the fact that they think he's a genuine Gold Cup horse. Henry knows what a Gold Cup horse looks like, so he is one to be. He is one that certainly could put himself into the picture.
There's a few Grand National projects in against him here, aren't there? Manila Crooner and Manila Indo, Capadano. Could be a fun race to watch anyway. Yeah, so we have Tremor, Cheltenham to look forward to on New Year's Day. Any other business, gents, before we wrap up, before the New Year celebrations?
Well, just give a salute to the Rowley team, Mel and Phil Rowley. They'd probably be my individuals of the Christmas period for the Welsh National win. Some training performance from Sam Thomas with the 2nd and 3rd in the Welsh National on reappearance. But that was a lovely story, them winning with Val Dancer and the ownership behind it and so on. So I tip my hat to the Rowley team.
And Sam Thomas is going good, isn't he?
He's a good trainer, isn't he?
Steadily, he's building a really handy team there.
Yeah,
you were looking for a handicap eyecatcher, Matt?
Please, yeah, the one that I was going to say, the one who ran on to second. The name escapes me now, but yeah, the Thomas horse in the Welsh National really did catch the eye with the way he finished there.
Jubilee.
Well, we've been talking about Joseph O'Brien's team quite a bit over the podcast. One of his really did catch my eye over the week during the week, and that was Lark in the Morning. Obviously, last year's Fred Winter winner. He came from an awful long way back to finish 5th or 6th in a handicap hurdle at Leopardstown, first start of the season. I'm sure he's been got ready for something like a county hurdle or a Cardinal Cup. But there's loads of improvement to come from him. He's a better horse in the spring. Keep an eye on him for Cheltenham, I reckon.
That is
Billy,
live in the morning.
Can I make one mention of the flats? It's a regular theme, a running joke on this podcast about the Irish sprinters and how they struggle. I saw a video over Christmas of someone who'd been to Ballydoyle. They've got this Aussie horse, Billy, as you know, Storm Boy. He looks an absolute bull, and he was right up there with the best Aussie sprinters. So I think we might be looking for some fun and games with the at least one Irish sprinter this time. If he's as powerful as he looks on video, he's going to be a fun horse to watch in 2025.
We've seen him working alongside Aidan's Jeep yet, no? Just to tell us how fast he can go.
Oh, I remember when they got Star Spangled Banner. He came from Australia, I think, didn't he?
Yeah,
and one of Aidan's legendary quotes is Johnny Murphy was there at the time. He said he needed a parachute on his back to slow him down. He was working so fast.
So much to look forward to.
So just before we go, Matt, I got a handicapper to follow now. Unsurprisingly, I've spent most of the Christmas period playing in the sand on the all-weather, and is one that shaped really well at Newcastle on Saturday night. Showtime Mahomes, the race that was. It was won by Pal's Battalion, who came down the centre of the track, and as did the second. Well, Showtime Mahomes, he was sort of stuck in traffic a little bit on the rail, did well to finish third, beating only half a length. And he's one that we don't have too long to wait, because I noticed he has been declared again on New Year's Day at Newcastle in the 440 there. And he's got the high draw again, which is usually an advantage on the straight track at Newcastle, certainly over the sprint trips. A 6 furlongs. So, Showtime Mahomes, I think, can gain some quick compensation for a bit of bad luck at Newcastle on Saturday night.
Good luck. Can I quickly tell you my Showtime Mahomes? Can I tell you my Showtime Mahomes story? You're talking about him getting stuck in traffic. When he was a young horse, he ran up at Musselburgh, and he's owned by a very keen syndicate group of lads. And I was on the train from Edinburgh Waverley to get to Musselburgh. And these lads must have been in the same carriage, and they must have seen me and said, well, he obviously knows the bloody way. But I got off at the wrong station, and so did they.
There's nothing more awkward, is there?
So I didn't get off to a good start with that firm. But no, good luck with him.
Our showtime is sadly up, but big thanks to Billy Nash, David Johnson, Ed Chamberlain, Graham Cunningham. We'll say good luck and goodbye. Best wishes for the new year, all you Sport and Life readers and listeners. And we'll be back in the usual slot next Wednesday with our thoughts on the latest racing action.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion and tips.